Do you love Curb Your Enthusiasm? I just spent the last hour and a half with the cast and they're talking about all the seasons and the final season, and here are some things that really stood out to me. Larry doesn't know anything. Everyone surprises him. So Larry's hearing something for the first time, and then when you hear those laughs, those are real laughs because everything is new. He talks about how in other shows that the lines are funny, but because they've practiced it so many times, nobody really laughs, and so he wants the laughs to be authentic. This is how they rehearse. They basically just block it, and when it's time to say something, someone just goes blah, 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 but no one says anything like what they're going to say. They are truly making it up on the spot. Cast members do get a basic outline, but everything is truly in the moment, and Larry talks about how with the guest stars, he would always write all these episodes and then ask them afterwards. He never got approval for a guest star before, so for example, he says that one of his favorite guest stars was Mel Brooks, and he had already written the 3 episodes or the concepts for them and then took Mel out to lunch and said, hey, do you want to do this? JB was a huge fan of the show before he got cast and basically says that his wife manifested the show for him. She looked at him and said, you're going to be on the show. He was a writer on SNL and was on a couple sketches, but nothing like this. And that Larry gave him the best advice. On the first day, he said, you need to make it more natural. Don't act like you're in a sketch. And his main job was to decide if he was going to be against or with Larry, and that he just continued to push the envelope as much as possible. He says it's easy to pull back, but it's hard to turn up. Larry shared some really sweet stuff about Richard Lewis and that they were born at the same hospital in Brooklyn 3 days apart. They ended up going to the same summer camp as kids when they were 13, but they weren't friends. Then they reconnected during stand-up. He says that Richard Lewis was notorious for trying to get as much information as he possibly could about what was going to happen on the series and the episodes he was in, and that he would try to pre-write material and insert it into the show, and that he was the biggest pain in the ass out of all of the cast. He was always sending emails, asking the same questions, and Larry's job was always to try to pull him out of his pre-written bits and make him be anchored in the moment, and everyone feels like this past season was some of his finest work. Cheryl shares that so many times that she would read the outlines and say to Larry, you can't do this. People are going to be so upset. And Larry never cared. He said HBO was such a wonderful place to do this show. They never gave him pushback. They let him do whatever he wanted to do. Larry says he got into comedy because there was absolutely nothing else he could possibly do. And they told some really funny stories about how his first night he was just watching comedy and went and asked if he could go up on stage. And they go, are you a comedian? He's like, no. He thought everyone was just pretending and making stuff up. He didn't realize that this is material that they've been working on for 3 years. He also felt like every day that HBO was going to totally cancel him, and that every time they were writing a script or coming up with something, he would always go, this is awful. We can't do this. We can't do the show. Let's quit. Jeff shared that his favorite episode was the recent Bruce Springsteen episode, and that he got to hang out with him all day and they became friends, and then later he went to a concert and it was the best experience ever. He got really teary and so did Larry, and it was just so brilliant to see their friendship. And he said, you know, producing the show, being on the show is truly the greatest thing he's ever done, and that he feels that this is really the end of an era for this kind of comedy where you push the envelope. And I got to see this at PaleyFest here in Los Angeles. It was such a cool festival with all of my favorite TV shows. And who else is mourning Curb Your Enthusiasm? Let me know your favorite episode or your favorite moment from the show, and let's keep the discussion going.